All right, let's talk about the number one question I get as a public adjuster, and that is when they should hire a public adjuster versus when you should send a claim to appraisal. To give you some background, I run Clarion Claims Group. We're a public adjuster firm that works in 9 different states, and we've recovered millions and millions of dollars for policyholders when their claims have been underpaid or denied. And this video isn't just for contractors, it's also directly for homeowners if they have questions about their claim. But most commonly, contractors are going to see more claims than anyone, and it's critical if you're a contractor that you understand this information so you can properly assist homeowners. Before starting Clarion, I worked as a contractor personally, so I know the contractor side of the fence and understand how confusing a lot of this can be. First off, let's talk about what a public adjuster is. A public adjuster is an adjuster hired by the homeowner. So their job is to represent the homeowner on the claim. With that, they typically have very similar responsibilities and authority on a claim. They can negotiate, discover things, submit things, review policy, and talk policy, which is going to differ. A contractor can discuss the damages, the pricing, the repairability, the scope of work, but a contractor can't discuss the policy, the terms, and technically can't do the negotiating either. The biggest part of that is public adjusters are allowed to uncover and dig into the damages. As a public adjuster, I'm allowed to do what's called self-discovery. I'm allowed to find weather reports, find data, investigate, tear things apart, try to find out what really caused the loss, what actually caused the damages, and ultimately what is going to be owed per the policy. Appraisal is like a roof court. Imagine the homeowner picks an appraiser, the insurance company picks an appraiser. Those 2 appraisers then decide on an umpire, and the 3 of them go on the property, investigate everything, look at everything, and then come to a determination. An appraisal is a binding agreement. Appraisal is an end of the road. Once the appraisal panel determines something, there's no going back and negotiating, going for more. So it's very important that you don't send claims to appraisal if it's not actually needed. So what things can an appraisal panel determine? In Minnesota, they're allowed to determine on causation, so what actually caused the damages, the means and methods, so the repairability and compatibility and how the repairs can actually be done, the scope of repairs, so the extent that those repairs need to go, and the pricing for those repairs. What they can't discuss as an appraisal panel is going to be the policy and the coverages. They're not allowed to say, well, this is going to be covered by matching coverage and this is going to be excluded because they don't have ordinance and law and things like that. So it's going to be important as we go through these examples to understand why a claim is being denied and if it's something that an appraisal panel can even determine. So given that very general outline, now it's important to start differentiating when something should have a public adjuster versus an appraiser. Ultimately, the best option is to have both a public adjuster, and then if the public adjuster deems it necessary, then to send a file to appraisal. However, there is costs associated with each of these. Typically with appraisal, you're going to have 2 fees. There's going to be the fee for the appraiser, for the homeowner's appraiser, and there's going to be the fee for the umpire. Typically, the umpire fee is split 50-50 between the insured and the insurer. So half is the homeowner's responsibility for the umpire, the other half is going to be the insurance carriers. Now, typically, appraisers are going to be anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 for the homeowner to pay, and then the umpire is typically going to be around $2,000, and half of that's the homeowner's responsibility. So for an appraisal, they're going to have an out-of-pocket cost payment from $2,500 to $3,000. And those numbers are assuming it's just a basic residential roof exterior claim. If it's commercial, large loss, fire, flood, more in-depth ones with multiple moving trades and multiple parts that need to be looked at, it's obviously going to go way above and beyond that. All right, so when should a file be sent to appraisal? Well, we know there's going to be an out-of-pocket cost, so it should only be when it's certain that the claim is going to be paid. You don't want to send something to appraisal if you're only 20-30% sure it's going to be approved. It's definitely not a time to throw stuff at the wall and see if it sticks. Now, a public adjuster is typically going to charge a percentage of a claim, anywhere from 10-15% depending on the state and the region. But they're going to charge 10% contingent on them approving it. So as a public adjuster, a lot of times you'll take a claim just to find out that the damages are old, they're not there, the policy coverage isn't there, and you actually don't make any money, so the homeowner doesn't actually get charged for it. So if you're not certain if a claim is going to get approved or not, it really should go through a public adjuster's review to help make that determination of if appraisal is even applicable and is going to make sense for the claim. So giving that context, a real simple breakdown, an easy way to remember which type of claim should go where. If it's a pricing dispute, a causation dispute, or a means and methods or repairability dispute, typically that's going to go to appraisal. If a claim's being denied because of the policy coverage, the verbiage in the policy, or because the assessment and the facts aren't totally there, then that's going to be a time to send it to a public adjuster. Now, let's talk about how appraisal differs from state to state. Minnesota's commonly referred to as a one-party state for appraisal. A one-party state, that means if either the insurer or the insured are in disagreement, they can invoke appraisal and the other one has to go with it. If you disagree with the amount for your claim and you request and demand that you want your claim to go to appraisal, the carrier, the insurance company, has to agree to go as well. Other states, Nebraska is commonly referred to as one, could be a two-party state. A two-party state is they only go to appraisal if both sides are in disagreement. Well, if you imagine if you said, hey, I don't think my claim's paid fairly, do you think your insurance company is going to be in agreement? Of course not. Otherwise, they would have already paid out that amount. So it's very unlikely in a two-party state that you're even going to get the carrier to agree to go to appraisal. Let's talk about what makes appraisal not such a great option in a lot of cases. An appraisal panel in Minnesota is not allowed to do what's called self-discovery. They are not allowed to bring their own facts, research documents, research the claim, and dive into it. An appraisal panel is bound to only the information they're provided and that they already know. So if you don't give them everything they need, when they get to the panel and the opposing appraiser, the insurance company's appraiser, doesn't want to pay for it because they go, well, there's no weather data to support this, so I believe it's old damage. Well, the insureds, the homeowners appraiser cannot go, oh, well, let me pull up my weather data quick and verify. They're not allowed to do that. So with appraisal, it's very, very critical that you supply them every piece of documentation. This will be ITEL reports, photo reports. Weather data is so commonly missed. Any of the weather data, anything about previous claims. If there's been previous claims on the property, things that were denied previously, paid previously, when they bought the house. A common thing to get missed would be an inspection report. If they bought the house 2-3 years ago or a year ago, get an inspection report. The inspection report from when they bought the house could reveal a lot of information, help determine what's new damage, what's old, what's pre-existing, as well as if the house was listed, like I said, in the last 1 to 2 years, you could look through Zillow or Realtor.com and look at the photos inside the house. If you have leaks, you'll be able to see if those leaks were pre-existing, or if you can show, hey, those photos show that there was no leaks a year ago, there was a storm, and now there's leaks. All right, so in summary, appraisal is best when everything's put together, everything's ready, it's certain the claim should be paid for, and it has nothing to do with a policy exclusion. Anything short of that, where it still might require review, investigation, estimates, finding old data, policy exclusions, would need to go to a public adjuster first for them to weed through all of that, get all the information, get it prepared for an appraisal panel, and ultimately, hopefully get it approved before even having to go to appraisal. Hopefully that answered most of your questions about when a file should go to a PA versus appraisal. If you have any questions beyond that, please leave a comment below. We'd love to do a follow-up to this video of a ton of FAQ questions from you guys.